Everyone. I too am tempted to say happy Sabbath. That was this morning you were tempted, right, Bob? Well, it's a high Sabbath nonetheless, as it were, as we take a day off from our regular schedules. Who is hearing Walt Cross for the first time in your life? Few people here, the first time. This first time you're hearing Walt Cross? Very good, very good. Well, Walt and I became acquainted over 20 years ago, and we both worked at Harlan Institute, and I count him as a friend and a confidant, and somebody who, I'm not lifting you up here too much, Walt, am I? I hope not, but somebody who lives his teaching. And his health ministry goes far beyond just recommending which herbs to take for a certain condition. I think you'll find that his ministry involves healing the whole person. And I encourage you to approach him off stage with any of your concerns or questions you may have. He loves to minister. And before he comes up, let's have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you so much for the opportunity we have to get together here in spirit and in truth. I lift up Brother Cross, dear Lord, that you will give him words to speak from on high, that we can hear and learn something that will change us for the better. And then what's learning it, we can share it with others. Father, I also want to lift up especially Sherry Williams in the house behind me, who is really not well, who is in a great deal of pain and discomfort with her condition, nausea, etc. Dear Lord, we knew this was going to be a testing time. We just ask that you send your angels by her side. Give Sherry, Shanda, Walt, I, and all the others that are ministering unto her the ability to care for her needs. We ask all this now in Jesus' name, amen.
I thought I made it mad. So it's good to be back with y'all. As I was praying to, try to figure out what to share this time, a friend of mine he's over in China as a missionary, and he called me and we were talking, and he said, the most effective thing, don't forget, the most effective thing right now, and we can talk academia all day long, and y'all know I like talking academia, but you've got to have academia, but you also have to have practicality. And practical is so important. There's so many people out there that they may have heard, studied, whatever, but they don't know how to take it from here and put it to here. And you've got to be able to put it to here. And yes, it takes this to be able to put it here, but sometimes there's just too much talking up here. So today and tomorrow and Sunday, I'd like to do more practical. 2 years ago, I spoke on hydrotherapy. And who's ever taken CPR? Who's done CPR? Okay. If you're certified in CPR, you have to get certified at least every 2 years. Yes? Because why? You might forget. And they keep changing it. Remember Change on 3 next time? Yeah, who remembers Change on 3 next time? We did that back years ago. Yeah, first time I took CPR was in 1973. There's been a lot of changes since 1973. Hydrotherapy, the fundamentals of the physiology hasn't changed, but we do learn new things with it. We learn new things, techniques, and whatever that we find out. So today I'd like to again talk about hydrotherapy. Hydrotherapy is powerful. Who's done hydrotherapy? Who has ever taken a shower? Yes? Who's ever swam in a swimming pool? Who has ever swam in the ocean? Is that hydrotherapy? Yes, it is. Who has ever... yeah, that's internal hydrotherapy, isn't it? Who has ever got in a shower and that warm water just makes you feel so much better? And it relaxes those muscles. Yeah. Especially before your spouse gives you a nice massage. Yes? It's great. Or who's been in a shower and when you've finished the shower, you turned it cold? I can tell when Mary Lou is finishing the shower. As Schultz says, if you ain't screaming, it's not cold enough. And so, yes, most of us have done hydrotherapy. Yeah. And so, but I'd like to share a little bit more. Why are we talking about hydrotherapy today? Necessary, good. Effective. Increases blood flow. Could come to an end to allopathic medicine. You know what I'm talking about. Why do we need to do hydrotherapy?
Might be the only treatment that'll work.
Okay, might be the only treatment that work. We're getting there. It's the right arm. Yeah. What is God's mission? To save humanity. Bottom line, is it not? What is Christ's mission? To save humanity. What is our mission? To point the sin-sick soul to Christ, we are told in inspiration. And she tells us there, and we'll talk more about it at Sabbath school, but how powerful it is to use natural remedies and giving the credit to God, because it's not us. If you take the credit, you're going to fall and bust your nose, because it is not us. It is God doing the power. So let's look at some hydrotherapy. And that is a douche. And we're not going to do the douche again. Remember us doing the douche last 2 years ago? Was it cold? It was cold. This is a tremendous douche. And the best douche I ever had was in Venezuela at a waterfall that was a little more volume than this. Oh, I feel so good against my back. But that volume of water. And you can do a pail pour. Who's ever heard of a pail pour? See, Catalog started with the pail pour. And he would take a pail and he would pour it onto the patient. And then he got to thinking, maybe I could have some more pressure. And he got a ladder. And he climbed up on the ladder and poured the water. And then a little higher, more pressure. And then he became a really good plumber. And we then have, some more interesting equipment. Like this. How would you like to take a shower in that? That is a shower. You have multiple heads. Here, 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 and here. And you can go in that, and those kind of showers feel so good. Well, then, how would you like this shower? See, this one's coming up from the bottom even. Whoa, that'd get you. I've had the others, but I've never had one up through the bottom. That would be interesting. Yeah. These are very invigorating and very effective. And what are you after? Someone said it earlier. Blood flow. Yeah, you're getting that blood flow. Why are we worried about blood flow? Pardon? The life is in the blood? What did Mrs. White say? Perfect health is perfect circulation. Perfect circulation. Will this increase your circulation? Will this help with perfusion? Absolutely it will. And so you can use this tool in your house. Obviously you have probably just this back part, and some people may have the top and the back, but can you use that for hydrotherapy? Absolutely. And you can do contrast, where you do it hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold, vasodilation, vasoconstriction, Vasodilation, vasoconstriction. And what does that do? It's like an inline pump. Increases blood flow. The hot increases the blood flow to the areas. The cold squeezes it. Lets it out, squeezes it. It's very, very effective. There's so much. You want stories. If you want somebody with depression, put a person in this shower with depression. Start out with some warm water. Get them nice and calm. They got depression. And then you have them face the other side, and you get the douche. And you start the douche up and down the spine. And then you plumb turn it cold. They are going to come out of that depression. It does. It's amazing what it does to a person with depression. I mean, whoa. It increases that circulation. If you want to, and then have them turn around, be careful. And you can work that forehead and just massage that forehead with that nice, cool water. Very effective. Be careful, though. If the person has cardiac issues, don't go super cold. You can put them into angina, and you don't want to do that. Is this something you can do at home? Is this something that you can do for somebody who needs some help and they just don't feel too good? And you could say, listen, can I help you out? Oh, you'd need to have that. Well, what you could do, you can get these devices that it's like a little, it slips up over your sink in the bathroom, and then you can run it over and use it in the shower, like what you do for washing your dog or something like that. Just take that end off, and it only has about that much of a. You know what the best douche is? We get that when we finish a fire, and we'll wash off our turnouts, because when we go in a house fire, you got a lot of toxins on you, and you want to wash that off. And so we'll wash each other down with the fire hose. Get an 1 3/4 inch fire hose with about with a good bit of volume on there. I mean, you got to kind of stand like this, and okay. And I mean, all that back feels so good, rubbing that back. You can't change the temperature, but it feels good going up and down your back, massaging your back with that water. Works good. So you can do that. They have some that you can hook to the sink, to where your washer machine is. It looks like a, we call it a Siamese, but it's two females, comes down to a male, and then you hook your garden hose to it, and then you can go into the bathroom, and that way you can have someone in the other room, hot, cold, hot, as you're working the person. Or you can take them outside in the yard like we did 2 years ago. We had her out, she was right out here, but it was just cold. And so you can work that warm and cool and warm, and you can work different organs, but be careful, not too much pressure. That can be injurious. So you can have a person that's just not feeling well and say, do you mind if we do some hydrotherapy? Come in my shower, or can we use your shower? Ladies to ladies and men to men, unless you're spouses. And then you go, and do you just start doing it? What do? You pray first. You ask God to bless it. And then you can start with cold or hot. Warm. Yeah, start with some warm. You always end with cool. Start with warm. If you're doing a contrast, start with some warm. You can get a little warmer, and then just get them in there, and you can talk to them as they're in there, just going on their back or whatever. Sing to them. Ladies sing to each other. Us fellas do little different things, but we don't sing to each other. But is that something you could do with somebody? Would they feel better? They sure could. And you can turn it to warm to cool to warm to cool, and it's effective. It really is. This is a sauna. Who's ever used a sauna? You can have one that your head's sticking out. Remember these guys? Remember these little saunas back in the 60s? They still have them today. Very effective saunas. They'll do from the neck down. And saunas are extremely good for helping with the immune system. Come help me. So let's see here. If I can borrow a chair, thank you. And let's see here. Can you help me? I need an assistant. Ladies to ladies, right? Okay, if you can sit here. Now, it's nice if we have a sauna, but if we don't have a sauna, what can we use at the home to generate heat?
Russian steam bath.
Yeah, you want to tell them what we can put under the bed, under the chair?
So it's called an old-fashioned Russian steam bath, and you use a boiling pot. So if you have one of those that you can like plug into the wall or something to generate enough steam, or you can just use one of those electric, and just use a pot and generate your own steam. And then you're going to want to wrap the person with towel.
Let's do something first. If you can stand up. Why do we want to do this?
Usually the chair you use is wooden, so you want to wrap it so it doesn't get too hot.
What about where it's down there hanging?
For the feet, to protect from the steam. Yeah.
Yes. Do you want a metal chair?
No.
So now what do we want to do?
So you're going to want to wrap her with a sheet.
Now you can use a sheet, or you can use a. Here you go. I'll swap it. Or you can use a sheet, or you can use a piece of plastic, and cut a hole in it and drop it down like a poncho kind of thing. Big garbage bag. Yeah. And cut a hole through it. And I like the plastic. Personally, I like the one that's clear so you can see what the skin's doing. Some people don't like you being able to see what the skin's doing because you're seeing what everything else is doing. And so, but that works well. Yes. And so it's coming up around. Now, the way they used to do it before we had electricity, they would take and they would take a bucket and they would put hot rocks in it and water, and then you would put you'd take some hot water, put it under there. And then you would take that bucket and put them hot rocks. Be careful, don't get rocks from a creek. Why? It'll explode, crack, explode. Yeah. And so don't get rocks out of a creek. You got to be dry rocks. And so you can put them in a fire over here, take them out of the fire, lift it up, set it in there, take the others out, and you keep going back and forth with your rocks. And that's going to heat up your water. Could there be a time we don't have electricity? Sure is. Yeah, absolutely. And so how long do we want to do this?
An hour.
An hour?
Yeah, 30 minutes to an hour.
30 minutes to an hour. Yeah. So we could just do this. And why do we want to do this?
This is good for, well, it raises the fever in the body, right? So circulation, it's good for colds.
Builds immune system.
Builds immune system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what could you do it other than just hot? Could you do something where you're doing this, then a cold shower, then this, then a cold shower? Yeah, I like doing that. If you have a person that's poisoned, I had a guy. What is it? What's that stuff in a anybody electrician? What's that stuff in a transformer? Yes, that's in a transformer. So I had this guy come, and he wasn't that old. He was only like in his early 50s. He's young, but he looked like he was near 90-year-old. And he worked in the factory that made those transformers. step-down transformers. And he came in, and his labs were very high in that toxicity. So we started doing this. We did a hot shower, and then we did in a sauna. We actually did a full sauna with that, but you could do it with this. And we did it for 18 minutes. And then we put him into a shower for about 2 minutes, and then turned it cool, not plumb cold yet, but cool for about 30 seconds. Then we put him back here for 12 minutes. Then we put him back in the shower for 2 minutes warm, and then a little cooler. Then we put him back here for about 8 minutes. Then we put him back here in the shower, and then we went plumb cold, if they don't have cardiac issues. And we did that every day. And we would test it, and we'd send it to Texas. At that time, Texas had the best lab. Dr. Lassiter was the medical director of the lab. And what happened? So as we're hot, those toxins came out of the fat cells into the blood, and it was sweating out. And then someone would go back in, and we'd shower them, and we'd just keep going back and forth, and those numbers just came right down. Isn't that pretty cool? Yeah. What about muscle aches? Just doing the warm. Yeah, this can help with muscle aches, heat like this. It can actually build your immune system. When you you ever feel a cold coming on? You can go and hop in one of these things, or like this, and it can help fight it. Yes. It is ice cold. Thank you. Why do you think it's ice cold? Keep the brain cold. You don't want that brain getting hot. I had these folks didn't plumb tell me the truth. Well, they told me the truth, but they didn't keep telling me. And so he was spraying this stuff for these bees that bore into the wood. And for 2 days, he was spraying all over his house and his barn for carpenter bees. And then he got plumb sick. His wife calls me. His temperature was 105. And so what do you do with 105? How do you get it down? She tried that. It didn't work. Good. Any other suggestions? This has been 20-some years ago. My daughter was sick and had a good-sized temperature. And so Mary Lou had her upstairs in the bathtub, plumb cold. And Ashley's just screaming. And that hurts when you're youngins, screaming and hollering and sick. And I was impressed to get out my computer. And where do you think I went? I did. I got my CD-ROM. We didn't have the internet kind of thing back then, but I got my CD-ROM. And I started looking for temperature. And guess what I found? It said neutral bath. Neutral bath. That all makes sense. They taught me in school and EMS to go ice them. Ice in the armpits and the groin. And we were trying to get her cold, but it wasn't working. Temperature wasn't going down at all. So what do? Do you use science, or do you use what you read in Spirit Prophecy? Okay? So I'm a little different than most folks, but y'all know how I am. If I tell John something, and then I say, let's say I tell you something, Delilah, does it matter? Is what I tell John any more authority than what I tell you? It's me talking, right? Okay? So who inspired the Bible? Who inspired Spirit Prophecy? Is it the same person? It is. And so you have what? Faith. That's what it said. Neutral bath. So I hollered up to Mary Lou. I said, now why do you think I didn't go up there? Well, Ashley was in the bathtub naked. I didn't be up there. So I hollered up the stairs and I said, Ashley, Mary Lou, I said, neutral. Go neutral. Dump your water and go neutral. She did neutral because I told her to go cold. Go neutral. Boom, temperature came right down. They're now teaching that in emergency medicine. They're now teaching that. You think you're cutting edge when you study science. Maybe you're not. Yeah. Okay, anything else about this treatment that you can tell people?
Just be careful you don't get burned because the steam underneath it, it's hot, very hot. Huh? Well, and communicate, and because it will. Well, I did it, and I almost passed out. It was very hot. So just keep them hydrated, keep talking, and make sure they don't get burned.
Okay, so we said that let's do it for 18 minutes. But let's say at 5-6 minutes, she's about to pass out. What do? You say, well, Walt said do it 18 minutes. We better hang in there. I'll hold you. Don't fall over. What do?
Stop the treatment.
Stop the treatment. Because their constitution may not be able to handle it. Who remembers a guy by the name of Bob Jorgensen? You knew Bob? Did you know Bob? Bob was a tremendous guy, a very good personal friend of mine. He lived not far from me over in the next county. We used to go to church together. And it was actually through Bob that I ended up going up there and working. Well, Bob went to a camp meeting just like this. And Bob told me the story one day. He was putting in a water line for me, a spring box. You know what a spring box is, don't you? You go up in the mountain and you dig a hole, find you a spring, we call it a spring. Dig a hole, find your spring, and then water's coming out, and then you put in your plastic and your pipe and your rock, and then your more plastic, and then it runs into a big old box called a spring box. And so Bob was putting one in for me, and he told me the story. He went to a camp meeting, and someone came up to him, and he found out that someone was in a tent that had cancer. And they were dying, and they were laying on a sleeping bag, and they did not even have the energy. Are you too warm? Okay, so let's go ahead and let her out. Thank you, John. Yeah, we're getting some treatment here, aren't we? and so Bob, the guys, there you go. Does that feel better? Okay, hang on a sec. We might do it again and do some contrast. No, go ahead. Thank you. And so Bob goes to the tent to find this man who's laying on the bedding, sleeping bag, and I mean he's just no energy, and they sent him home from the medical institution to die with cancer, and they couldn't. Family won't go to camp meeting. They want to leave him home alone, but they want to go to camp meeting. So they just brought him along, just left him in the tent as they go back and check on him. And Bob said, let's do some hydrotherapy. Let's do a fever treatment. So they carried him to a bathtub, and they start a fever treatment. And how long do we usually do a fever treatment once we get the oral temp up to 102? Yeah, 20, 30 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes. The guy starts to pass out. But she said 20 minutes. Hang in there, buddy. Bob stopped. Bob said his constitution was so low, he could only do 5 minutes. And then he did it the next day. He got more. He did it the next day. He got more. Until at the very end of the camp meeting, the guy was doing better. The family was doing it. Went home. And God blessed those fever treatments, and Bob said the man lived. And Bob was a very honest man. He wasn't one of them folks who just tell stories. Bob was a very honest man. So as you work with a person, you want to do what their constitution can do. Yes, it's good to have academia. It's good to know what the normal numbers are, but it is not a cookie cutter. If I can tell you anything today, it is not a cookie cutter. Every person is different. You have to figure what works for each individual person. Who's done a neti pot? Is it hydrotherapy? Absolutely. Does it work? Do you know who was in India? Who was in India? Did you see them using neti pots in India? I know there's some places in India that use neti pots. Neti pots are really good for sinus irrigation. And I had someone text me this morning and said, "What do you do for the sinuses?" So I texted back, "Infection or what's going on? You need to know what's going on." So I hadn't heard back. But it works really well if you want to clean your sinuses. There was a guy, Dr. Boy, can I remember his name? He was a dentist. And he told me that every day he went home and did a neti pot. And he said he never got sick. He was in Chattanooga area, in Collegedale. Just don't remember his name. But anyway, but neti pots are really good to clean out the sinuses. You can use just plain water, saline solution, and you can make your own saline solution, and that's simple. A pint and 1 teaspoon of water. That's normal saline. And you're going to use that much. You're going to do 8 ounces on one side, 8 ounces on the other side. And so if you have someone who's really stopped up and sinus problems, and this is a tool that you could do with them. And this is really cool. You could do it yourself first and say, "Let me show you how to do it." Now, how long have they been doing sinus irrigation? Did Kellogg use sinus irrigation? What do you use? Enema bags. You want to wash the tip real good before you put it in your nose. But he used enema bags. Kellogg did not like syringes. People were even using syringe irrigation back then for the sinuses. But Kellogg said you can damage the eustachian tubes. And so you just want gravity flow. And so you can take an enema bag and use that to do that also. Well, let's say someone's kind of scared, and so Delilah goes, "Let me show you how to do it, honey." And so Delilah does it herself. The key is keep the mouth open. Do not shut the mouth. You know how in the house you've got, who does plumbing? Anybody do plumbing? What's that little pipe goes out the roof for? A vent. Well, this is the vent. If you close the vent, it goes down the throat. So keep the vent open so that it goes up and comes back out the other nostril. And then the other person, wash it off good, and then the other person can do it. Let's say you go to the doctor and you have a sinus infection or sinus problems, and you say, "Doc, well, you use the medicine first, and I'll see how you do with it." They're not going to do that, but it's cool. Many times you can do the treatment with that person and show them how to do it. I do it a lot of times with people who I use essential oils. Let's say a person's they're having an anxiety attack. I'll put the essential oil on me and let them see it's safe. And you can do it yourself many times, but it's great for sinus irrigation. Do some looking. Go up at YouTube. Who knows Dr. Thomas Jackson? Thomas Jackson. Okay, you know Jackson. Okay. Jackson has actually gotten rid of polyps up in the sinuses. And what he does, he takes and puts a teaspoon, not only, but a teaspoon of blackstrap molasses, stirs it in there. He says it takes about 30 days, but it can get rid of polyps up there. Yeah. Is that something y'all could do? A neti pot? That's not highfalutin. Y'all could do that. Yes. What if you've got a sinus infection and you want to really hit it hard? I'll use golden seal tea. Take a pint of water and bring the water to a boil, plumb turn it off, put you a teaspoon in there, let it sit for 30 minutes. Now, I would strain the golden seal because you don't want them little chunks up in there. And so strain it through what? What's the best thing? You could cheesecloth, a coffee filter. This is the only thing a coffee filter is good for. But it works really well because a paper towel wicks extremely well. And so you lose a lot of your material there, and you kind of squeeze it out, and sometimes it rips open. So a coffee filter works very well. And so you take a pint, and you put a teaspoon in there and make an infusion. It's a type of tea. You got an infusion or a decoction. You're making an infusion, and let it sit for 30 minutes, and then pour 8 ounces in, run through one side, then put the other 8 ounces in, run it through the other side. And you think that Golden Seal is going to be effective up there? It sure is. Golden Seal is a tremendous tool. What if you don't have Golden Seal? What can you use instead of Golden Seal? Garlic. Oregano. I'm looking at something real close to Golden Seal. They call it poor man's Golden Seal. No. Oregon grape root. Oregon grape root works very similar to Golden Seal. Now, who's ever heard of yellow root? You've heard of yellow root. Well, maybe I ought to say it the way it is in Appalachia. Yellow root. That's what we call it, yellow root. And yellow root, it looks similar to Golden Seal. It runs across near branches, and that's not a branch on a tree. It's a branch is a creek. And yellow root is it looks like Golden Seal. It tastes like Golden Seal. It smells like Golden Seal, but it's a little different. It's like a Siamese twin, but not plumb the same. And you can go out and pick it, and you have free Golden Seal, because Golden Seal is expensive. It's running, $25 to $30 an ounce, depending on where you buy it. So that's yellow root is something you can pick and harvest in our neck of the woods in the mountains. And does it grow up here? Okay. But you can get Oregon grape root. If Golden Seal is a little too expensive, go to the store or order Oregon grape root, and it works quite well. Okay. Yes?
So what about the molasses would have an effect on pollen?
I don't know the etiology. I just know that Jackson said it would dissolve the polyp. It's a good question. I don't know. Who's ever had an enema or done an enema? You don't see it today like we used to. We used to see it a lot, didn't we? If you're sick, give them an enema. Yeah. Why don't they do it today? 2 reasons.
It was used to administer medicines, right? But now it's much easier just with a hypodermic.
Yes, but it also could be to a person who, they used to do it a lot for just cleaning out the person's colon. They used to do it. Or if they were constipated. But why would they rather give a pill for constipation now instead of an enema?
It's
Embarrassing. The patient doesn't like it. More labor intensive. Yes? Oh, no. The insurance company will pay for that. You can bill for that. It's all about billables. What's another reason? Yes, and we'll get to that in a minute. Yes, we'll come back to that. Why don't we see caregivers doing it? They don't know how. That's one reason. Yeah. What's another? All they know how to do is, if they did, is a Fleet's enema. And a Fleet's enema many times is not enough. Dr. Fleets down in Virginia, he was a pharmacist, came up with that. No, it's because they don't want to get messy. You know, enema work's kind of dirty. And people just don't want to get dirty no more. So let's go back to what she said. There are people who say we should do enemas every day. Whether it's just an enema or a coffee enema or whatever. What's the problem with doing an enema all the time? Yes. My great-grandmother and my great-grandfather, spouses, went to Florida Hospital, and they graduated in 13, I think, the first class at Florida Sanitarium. Grandmother went back to Chattanooga, and Granddad went on up to Battle Creek and worked for Kellogg. Grandmother went to 9th Street. And now it's called Martin Luther King Boulevard, but back then it was 9th Street. Highfalutin people lived on 9th Street back then in the teens, in the 19-teens. And she would go, and highfalutin women liked to get, it was a fad to get enemas. was a fad. But what grandmother found is she had to keep going routinely because peristalsis stopped. The bowels depended on the enema. So be cautious. Yes, I believe in enemas if a person's stove up. Y'all know what stove up is, right? Okay. So it's a great tool, but you can do it too much. Hydration. We were talking about that just, here, that you can use an enema at a slow drip, at a very slow drip, and you can hydrate somebody that you can't get them to keep anything down. So you can take a IV bag or a pump, and you put it on a low drip. Take your tubing, cut the end off, curve it like your finger, put some lube on it, insert it, and just slowly have it drip. Well, any of y'all have ever had an enema, you know that the colon says that's the wrong direction, and it will evacuate. But if you do a slow drip, you can hydrate that person. You can actually run nutrients in. You can run juices in on that person that way. A fomentation. There's different types of fomentations. This is called a hydroculator pack. Can anybody tell me what city this was started in? No? You're exactly right. Chattanooga, Tennessee, the guy who started it worked for the Chattanooga Lookouts. This happened back in the 1960s, early 1960s. And he got tired of doing towels for the baseball players. And he tried to figure out, what can I do? So he got some material, heavy, what would you call this? Like steel shot or something, isn't it? Like lead? What? Not flannel. It's a lot more coarse. Canvas. Canvas. It was canvas. And he put bentonite clay in there. And then he sewed it. And it will hold the heat for a good while. If you've gone to a physical therapist, they will many times have that. We had it in physical therapy. And it had Chattanooga Group was the name of the group. It's been bought out about 20 years ago. But or your chiropractor may have it. So this is the hot part, but what do you think this thing is? What do you think that is? Keep them from burning. It's a barrier. And so you slip it inside this thing, then you can put it onto the patient. But these are great tools. The challenge with these are you can't let them be wet, dry out, wet, dry out, wet, dry out. It will break. And so we found it's best to either just leave them in the water, or some people will put them and freeze them in the freezer. But just letting them dry out, get wet, the longevity is not as good. But it's a great tool to use. We use them a lot in physical therapy. But this is the tool that we're used to here. Can you help me again? And this tool, how many's ever done a fomentation? Yeah, okay. So let's see here. You want to help, Delilah? Okay. So let's say it is, because we don't want to lay down, let's say, go ahead and have a seat. And let's say that she's got a bad shoulder. There we go. Now, you could put her in the shower first, and that will calm her nerves down. I like using a shower first. Get those nerves nice and calmed down. And then you can have her come out, and you can then do you can do either, sometimes we just do hot, and that's it. And sometimes we do hot and cold. And what's this one?
That's the protection.
That's the barrier.
It's just
Now, I'm sorry. So how are you going to heat this up? What's your options?
So there's many ways you can heat up a fomentation. The most common is a microwave. So you're going to fold it in half fold it in half, and then again, and then get this wet, roll it up, and rinse it out real good. You want the consistency to be like your wash machine clothes when they come out of the washer. And you can put 3 in a plastic bag and put it in the microwave. That's the most common way. You can also roll it up in tin foil, put it in the oven for about 20 minutes on 300.
What's the old way?
The old way is dipping it into a boiling pot. Make sure you have mitts on or something to protect your hands.
Tongs, like what you use for getting corn out of a pot?
Dip it down there, wring it out real good.
What's the easiest?
Microwave.
Yeah, I got rid of my microwave because, see, microwaves are bad for food. And then I go, wait a minute. How am I going to do my hydrotherapy? So I'd buy me another microwave.
So once you have it out of the microwave or whatever form you use, you're going to put it right on the area. And then cover it with
Do a blanket or
another towel or whatever you have. And you're going to leave it on for 3 minutes and then take it off and do 30 seconds cold friction.
What if we're just going to do hot? Is that something we could do?
Yeah, absolutely. Then you can just keep it on there until it gets cool or warm. You want to keep it hot, so keep changing it out as long as it lasts, probably like 3 minutes.
Okay, so let's say that we want to do that thing called a cold mitten.
Get a bucket of ice, cold ice water, and rub the area really fast and friction with cold water.
Is there anything you're going to
Ice.
be cautious on if you do a cold mitten friction?
A har-
What if she has a broken arm?
well,
Are
then,
you going to do it real hard and fast?
no.
So, or if there's some skin issues,
Mm-hmm.
so you want to use some horse sense there, which there's not a lot of horse sense anymore. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and so you do it for, what if you don't do a, why do you do a cold mitten friction?
It pulls the blood away and then new blood back when you put the hot back.
So what if the person says, oh, no, that's too aggressive? What can you then do? Just lay it on there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just make it ice cold, wring it out, and just lay it on there for about a minute. And then you're going back to
Hot. 3
3 minutes hot. Now, how many times do you do it?
5 to 7 exchanges, depending on what you're treating it for.
Yeah. I like 7. That's a good number. Yeah, I usually do 7. But what are you dependent on? What if the patient goes, I had enough?
Then stop.
Yeah. And what did you start with?
Prayer.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't fake prayer. So when I'm doing demonstrations, I don't say a fake prayer. But yes, you do. You pray. When I was in high school, my junior year, I was down in Georgia, and I picked up an ice chest too fast, and I got sciatica. And I had sciatica until I was probably 17, and I had it until I was 42 or 3, maybe 43. Yeah. Oh, it was terrible. And I had this, and every time I'd hire a new physical therapist, I'd say, can you fix this sciatica? Never they could. Well, one day I was at the office where John and I used to work, and I'd walked out to see my secretary, and I started back in the office, and then I had this guy. He was an old German physical therapist. To show you how old he was part of the Hitler Youth when he was a little boy. And his mama goes, something's wrong here, and she jerked him out of Germany and brought him to America. Well, when he got old enough, he went to a place called Battle Creek, and he took hydrotherapy, and he took massage therapy. And then he then went on to Loma Linda and got his degree in physical therapy and had his own physical therapy company in Charlottesville, Virginia. Well, he retired, and he came to me and says, can I do some work for you? And I just want to keep my fingers in it a couple of days a week. And I said, sure. So he says, you got any problems I can help you with? And I said, no, I'm good. He goes, you got any problems I can help you with? He'd seen me walk. He was smart. And I said, well, I got me some sciatica. And he's like, uh-huh. And he says, you got any time? I got some time right now. Let me see if I can help you. So I said, I can do it right now. So I went down to the therapy room, and he did 4 modalities for 5 days. And it's been gone now since 2003. 2003. So that's been how many years? Yeah. He did 5 treatments. So what he did was he first started with what you just did. He did a hot fomentation with a hydrocollator pack. Then he did deep tissue massage. Then he did E-stim. Now, E-stim is like what? A TENS unit, but it's stronger. And then he did ultrasound. Now, not the ultrasound you do for when you're checking on a baby. It's something that the Nazis, he told me, developed for actually torture. It would break bones. And actually, the one he had was a tube machine. Remember tube televisions? Yeah. And he offered to give it to us, and I wouldn't take it because this machine was so strong. You had to do a side, lift it up, come across, and then do the other side. Because if you went across the spine, it would shatter the spine. It would shatter the spine, and I said, I'm not going to take the risk that one of my staff is going to get talking to a patient and slip across and shatter that spine. They make them today that aren't as strong. But he did that. He worked that area 5 different days over a 2-week period, and it's gone. Now, what did the fomentation do? He just did hot. So what did it do? It relaxed the muscle. Do you ever feel kind of tight up in here? Y'all have been kind of tight in your shoulders? A hot shower can do that. Can calm that down or not put a fomentation. But how can you use that in medical missionary work? Could someone tell you, I'm having some problems with my shoulders and they're really hurting, or they say, I've got carpal tunnel. And who remembers John McEnroe? Remember John? The guy, he had a problem with a temper. Well, I went to New York a number of years ago to learn from his therapist. And he was very good. His therapist was very good. And he said the majority of the time, carpal tunnel is not here. Carpal tunnel is here or in the neck. It tightens up so much, pulls down through the arm, and pulls right there. He says, before you ever do surgery or treat that wrist, go to a good physical therapist or massage therapist and check out these shoulders or neck. Walter, my son, some of y'all know Walter. Walter has much better fingers than I do. He palpates. I mean, he should have been a chiropractor. He's just extremely good palpation. And so I'll call him out when someone comes in, and I'll say, Walter, can you check this person for me? And he'll check their shoulder. He'll check their necks. And you can feel those knots. Well, so let's say someone comes and says, I've got carpal tunnel, and then you check their shoulders, and you can feel them knots. Have you ever felt them knots? Sure. And so is that an opportunity to do medical missionary work? Absolutely. You say, would you mind if I tried something and see if it might give you some relief. And you sit them down, you pray, give credit to God, ask God to provide healing. Whether it heals it or not, does it feel good to have your shoulders rubbed? It sure does. And as you go over here and as you work that shoulder and you feel that and you work that knot and you work that knot, and you're working around and you're using that fomentation, to warm it up first, and you're doing some, what's the other thing that you're working, what's that called? Massage. And you're using that massage to work that area. There's a good chance you can work them knots down. Do you think they're going to feel better? Is this at least going to be feeling better? Yeah, absolutely. And then you can say, do you mind if I come back and maybe we could do it again sometime? Can that then, when you're working with somebody, does that give you an opportunity to talk to them? Does it give you an opportunity to share some stories that has happened before? Does it give you an opportunity to maybe share some wow stories before that are miracles? and you can tell them, and you take all the credit? You give it to God. And then you start sharing with that person what Jesus is like. See how it works? See how it's the right hand that opens a door and allows the gospel to walk through. Now, what's the most important part? The right hand that opens the door or the body that walks through? The body that walks through, because that's the gospel. Don't be confused. Some people think, no, it's this. No. But does this help this? Because if you don't, how are you going to go through that door? Like a bull in a china closet. You're going to have to bust that door down. It's a lot easier to open that door through doing a massage, talking to that person. And maybe even while she's here, now don't do this to guys. Guys, don't do this to guys. But ladies can do it to ladies. Sometimes ladies like their head massaged. Is it true? Yeah, I don't want no guy massaging my head. Now, Mary Lou can massage my head, and I'm okay with that. But I just don't want no guy massaging my head. But y'all ladies have no problem with this. And so, ladies, you might say, well, can I massage your head? Is it pardon?
Oh, a head massage is wonderful.
Yeah, it breaks down barriers. It does. I can tell you in a lifestyle center, the person who has the most communication with that person, when this person leaves, the therapist is who they know the best. Why? Because you touched them. Did Jesus touch people? Isn't it terrible that Satan is taking touch away? He's taking touch away, hasn't he? You can't even shake a person's hand. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so let's see what else. So any questions on, yes? Yes, absolutely. It's going to be a little different. The moist heat will drive deeper, but that heat from the flaxseed or whatever you're putting in there is very therapeutic. Very therapeutic, yes. Yeah, it's a good tool to use. So, do you feel comfortable that you could do a fomentation on the chest? Let's see, where did I put it? Here's up here. When I was in college, there's this old fella, and I've told this story here before, but some of y'all may not have heard it. This old nurse, he was in his late 90s. He said, Walt, I need to tell you something. You're taking health care, and you might need it someday. He said, back in 1918, when I was a nurse in the United States Army, our soldiers were dying with influenza. Now, it's true that the Germans didn't know that. They actually would go and get nurses from Battle Creek at night and stow them away, and so that no one would know, and they wouldn't tell the Japanese no, actually, it was the Germans, only the Germans then. The Germans that we were having problems, and you can read that in Battle Creek literature. But he was just doing it, working as a nurse in the Army, and he said the best thing they found to treat the influenza was hot and cold fomentations. And he says, someday you may need that. And so he taught me how to do hot and cold fomentations. I was just a student in school. Did we use it during COVID? It was the best thing I found for COVID pneumonia. Tremendous for COVID pneumonia. So we did a shoulder. We talked about the chest. Could you do a knee? Yeah, you could. Anywhere you need a fomentation. The back. You could do the back. You could actually do this one where we call it a revulsive treatment, where we put their feet in hot water and we do a fomentation on the chest, a fomentation on the back. We lift them up. We change the back one, lay them down, put the cold one, the chest one, back and forth, and we're actually doing the front and the back of the chest. Is that more effective? It's double doing it. Yeah, it's double doing it. I asked Dr. Agatha one day, I said, people are just putting mustard plasters on the chest. Well, you're doing it to increase circulation in the lungs. You got the lungs, the ribs, the skin, mustard plaster. On the back, you got the lungs, the ribs, the skin. Why can't you do it on the back? She goes, makes sense. She says, yeah, let's do a mustard plaster on the back and the chest. Makes sense. You can do the same thing with fomentations. Hot foot baths. Okay, let's see here. Can you help me? Come on up. So I don't have a bucket. I forgot to bring a bucket. But we'll pretend. So we're just going to do a hot foot bath. Not contrast yet, but hot foot bath. Why would you want to do a hot foot bath?
Headache. That's the most that I use them for. Also, women with menstrual cramps, it's good for that, pulling the blood away. And
Yeah, what about at night before you go to bed with some Epsom salt in the water?
yeah,
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, if you're in China and your host may come and have you go and sit on the side of the bed or sit in a chair, and they will put your feet in nice warm water, not too hot. Can you be too hot? Yeah, you can. But nice warm water, like bath water. And could that calm your nerves down and help you get ready to fall asleep? Stick some Epsom salt in there. Now, Epsom salt is what? Magnesium. So can magnesium help sleep? Yes. When I'm trying to sleep at night, I have a hard time going to sleep because it's hard for me to turn this thing off because I'm trying to think of everything I didn't get done today. And then I got everything I'm planning on doing tomorrow. Now I can't have time to do everything tomorrow because I need to do everything I didn't get done today. Y'all ever think that way? That's the way my brain works. And so Mary Lou can tell. Y'all know how you can tell about your spouse. She can tell I ain't settling down like I should. And so she'll go, here, you want some ashwagandha? And she says, you want one or two? And so I'll take some ashwagandha. And then she says, you got your rollerball? Yeah, I got my rollerball. She says, stick it on your feet. Sometimes we have to be encouraged. Yeah. And so I have a little rollerball of magnesium oil. Do the feet absorb well? Yeah, they do. If you have a baby and you're wanting to put essential oils, where's a good place to put them? On the feet. Well, it works on us too. And so I'll rub magnesium oil on my feet. I take the ashwagandha, go right to sleep. Or if she's having a hard time to sleep, the best way to get Mary Lou to fall asleep is I'll say, will you rub my back? She goes, okay. Sometimes she don't make it 5 seconds. Sometimes she don't make it, but that's it. And she's gone. I mean, that will put her to sleep. She ain't going to get 15 seconds. She's going to be asleep. And so that's good. It feels good for 15 seconds. But I want her to sleep. She needs to sleep. And so you can use Epsom salt, and that can help. So we don't have a bucket, but tell us what you'd be doing.
so you'd get a basin of water, hot water, put the feet in the water, make sure that it's not too hot, right? So check it yourself. You can get it hot by boiling water, whatever.
Did it overstimulate if it's too hot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So make sure it's not too hot, and different people can handle different temperatures, right? So just communicate, and you can.
How are you going to put her feet in that thing? You going to say stick feet in there?
No.
You going to show? Show us.
Sure. Gradually put it in with their heels down.
Do you check it first with your own hand?
Yes. Or, yeah, your hand. And then gradually put it down and make sure it's right temperature for her.
So now you got her. She ain't going nowhere.
So you can wrap her with a sheet and a blanket like we did for the Russian steam bath, but make sure that you put the cold ice rag on her head to prevent a headache.
But you have hog-tied her, right?
Mhm.
She ain't going nowhere. Now what can you do?
Talk to her.
What are you going to talk about?
Um,
Why are you doing medical missionary work? Are you doing it for her headache?
mm-mm.
What are you doing it for?
Pointing the sin-sick soul to Christ.
So how do you do that?
So you talk to her and encourage her, sing with her, or just testimonies, encouraging word, Bible verses.
So don't get confused. The mission is to point the sin-sick soul to Christ. So don't get confused and say it don't matter how I do my work. Right? You still, who are you representing? Jesus. And so do you want to do a sloppy job? Are you going to be as effective representing him if you do a sloppy job? No. So you want to do the best job for him because we're working for him. And so you're doing a great job and you want to help, let's say it's a headache or whatever the problem is, but don't forget also, you're not making healthy sinners. Does that make sense? It's amazing what happens when you're doing this with people and you're sitting there and then out of the blue, why do you go to church on Saturday? Well, I tell you what, let me see. I've got my preacher's number here somewhere. Let me see here. Let me see if I can get a hold of him. No, he ain't answering. Listen, I'll get back with you on that. Is that what you do? Can the Holy Spirit be prompting her? We'll talk about this Sabbath. Yeah, very important. You got to be ready to answer those questions. So did you just learn medical stuff down there? What else did you learn?
Medical missionary is medical with the Bible, right? So we're missionaries, medical missionaries, but it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it does. All right. So if a person has a headache, say a migraine, where was I? I was in Bermuda at a camp meeting, and I had gotten down, and I was doing the health component, and there's a lady that was sitting back there, and I'd talked to her several times. She'd had some health issues, and I got down, and we were walking out, and she was sitting in her chair with her head between her in her hands between her legs. Well, that just ain't right. And so I walked over to her, and I said, "You okay?" And she says, "I left my migraine medicine at home, and I have the worst migraine. I can't move." And so what do? Call 911. No? So I called two ladies. Why did I call two ladies? She was a lady. Ladies work better with ladies. Men work better with men. That's just how God made it. Unless it's spouses, and that even makes it stronger for spouses, yes? Yep. So I had one lady get a bucket of cold water or hot water for her feet. What? Hot water. And then I had another lady get an ice bucket of ice water with 2 washcloths. And so we prayed. One lady stuck her feet just as I showed her how to do it. You don't just say, "Stick your feet in there, woman." You gently put it down in there. And then we put one to the forehead, ice rag, and one to the base of the skull. And we kept doing that. And it took right at 20 minutes. Right at 20 minutes. And she goes, "I can drive home. I'm okay now." I was in Sacramento at Doug Batchelor's church. We were doing an evangelistic series with ASI. And this guy comes in, and he had seen me doing health stuff, and he said, he was walking into the church, and he came up to me and he says, "I have the worst headache I have ever had, migraine. Can you help me?" So we're at the Sac Central Church when Doug was still there. And so we went back to y'all been to there? The kitchen area. Went to the kitchen area. And so did I need to get a woman to help me? No. So could I do it myself? Yes. And so it was in the kitchen, so I scurried up the things we needed, and I forgot how I got a washcloth, and I forgot what I did for that, but I got something that worked. And now the other thing is now the lady in Bermuda, I didn't do this, but this guy I did. I'd learned this part. And so with this fella, I put his feet in the warm water. I did the 2 rags here and here, and then I gave him a glass of water, and I had him take drink a cup of water every 10 minutes. A cup of water every 10 minutes. You go, well, that's free flow. It is, but I need to really saturate this guy as quick as possible. It took about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, more towards 40 minutes. And he goes, I'm fine. I saw him several years later, and he introduced me to his wife, and he said, this is the guy who helped me when I had the worst migraine I've ever had. Now, is that a time to witness to a person and share with them that it was not me? What if I said, yep, I did it? You don't do that. God will not bless that. Okay. Do you have any questions?
No.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. So that's a hot foot bath. So you can do that, or you can do hot and cold. Hot and cold. What would you? Don't run off. Thank you, ma'am. What would you do hot and cold foot bath for?
Hot, cold foot bath.
What if they sprain their ankle? And it's been over 48 hours. Because less than 48 hours, which do you do? Cold.
Cold.
Yeah. Why do you do cold less than 48 hours?
The swelling.
Yeah, yeah. If you have hot, it causes swelling. Well, we don't want more swelling. And so you're going to do cold the first it used to be 24, now it's 48, and some orthopods have gone back to 24. But, yes.
Well, you don't want the blood to come there too soon because it causes a lot of pain.
It does. It causes more inflammation too. Inflammation, pain. But now we're over 48 hours. So we did the cold first instead of the hot. Now we're going to do 2 buckets. And how are we doing 2 buckets? We're over the 48 hours, and why are we doing 2 buckets?
One for hot and the hot water, one for the ice cold water, and put it back and forth to help new blood, fresh blood to
So what's a hot do?
opens the vessels,
What's that called?
vasodilation,
Yep.
and vasoconstriction.
Okay. So it's
For the cold, closes.
Yep. So the heat brings in more blood. Perfect circulation is perfect
Sure.
health. And then we stick it in the cold, and it squeezes the blood out. And it's like she just stuck an inline pump down there. Can you do that for the hand?
Mhm.
Yeah. Any of the extremities, there's all kinds of extremity. We had extremity whirlpools just for the legs. And so we could stick the legs down in them, and we had extremity whirlpools for the arms, the elbow, they could stick the whole arm in and whatever. And so you could get go to Walmart and get them basins. You could stick that whole arm in there. Could y'all do that? So what's an example that they could find? Let's say someone comes and they were out walking on the weekend and they were hiking and they sprained their ankle. What would you do first if it's within the first 24 hours? What could you do for that person? You use cold, yes. Yeah. And then after that 24, 48 hours, what are you going to do? Hot and cold. Ooh, good question. How long are you going to do? How many minutes hot, how many minutes cold?
3 minutes hot, 30 seconds cold.
Okay. And how many times are you going to do it?
5 to 6, 7 times.
Yeah.
30 seconds cold, yes.
And why do it 7 times instead of 5 times if you can? It's a perfect number. What's another reason? It gives you another 2 times that you can be doing right here talking to them. Right? Right? Is that true? Absolutely. It gives you 2 more revolutions of how many minutes? 3 plus 30 seconds. 3 plus 30 seconds is what? 7 minutes. You just got 7 more minutes to give them Bible study or something. Right? Don't forget why we're doing this. Take the opportunity that God just put in your hand to to spend time with people. You've hog-tied them. They ain't going nowhere. And 7 is going to be better than 5 because you're increasing more circulation. Mrs. White says, when God places someone in front of you, it is the most important thing for you to do. Stop everything and share Christ with them. Is it true? Yeah, okay. So, let's see here. Some of the reasons for a hot foot bath. Let's see if I have any more pictures here. There's the contrast. What time are we here? How long do we have? It's 3:50. Are we out of time? No. We're not? How much do we have? 5 minutes. Okay, so let's look here. Salt glow. Oh, come on back up. You might as well just sit down on the side here. Can you tell the advantage that Uchi Pine has provided? Can you see what Uchi Pine's done? Tell them what you learned down there.
Everything. Well, not everything, but it was a great experience. I learned a lot. 6 months. I would definitely recommend it to anyone. It was good.
So, was it enough?
No. No. Huh?
You're going back for more?
I am. Yes.
So,
Constantly learning.
do you feel more confident that you can be a medical missionary now?
Yes.
Yes.
I like one-on-one, not up here, but that's okay.
Do we need to be teachers?
Absolutely.
We do need to be teachers. Yeah. I can remember the first time I got up, I scared Plum. Talk about a salt glow. What's a salt glow and why do you do a salt glow?
I don't know.
Have you not done a
I
salt glow?
have not.
Ooh, okay. So salt glows are a lot of fun. So a salt glow is where you get a person, and I get these ladies out of New York City, and they come in, and I would sit down with them at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we get their vitals, or I get information from them as I get a history on them, and how often do you have a bowel movement? And it's like, do you sweat? No, ladies do not perspire. They go from their highfalutin apartments to their highfalutin cars to their highfalutin stores and to the highfalutin cars, and they didn't sweat. They didn't perspire. And the girls would get them into therapy, and they couldn't get them to sweat. So what do? It took 5 days on average on them women out of New York City. And we had highfalutin people. Is that okay to work on highfalutin people? Did God tell us that we need to help highfalutin people? Yes. And so what they would do is you get some salt and put it in your hand. Now, I don't like the little girl with the umbrella. She's not healthy for you to put inside you, but she's fine for this because she's cheap. You can also put Epsom salt if you want to. You can put some peppermint essential oil if you want to. But be careful with peppermint essential oil. It will wake them up. But what if that lady, now I ain't doing ladies, but what if you were working on a lady and she just shaved her legs? You going to put peppermint on her legs? You're going to light her up. And so be careful. Use horse sense. What if they had a broken bone? Are you just going to take off and no? Or what if they had a skin rash, poison ivy, eczema? No. So what you do is you put the salt in there, and then you just, on their arms, on their back, and so we let the patient do as much as they can do. As much as they can do. Then, when they get in the shower, then the therapist can get their back for them. Maybe, if they're not as they don't range as well, they can't lean over as well or move as well. You might get some of those areas, but those more private areas, let them get those regions. And it exfoliates the skin, is what you're doing. You're exfoliating the skin by rubbing that off. And you can do it by your hands. You can do it by a washcloth. But can you show them how to make this into a cold mitten? How to make a mitten out of that? Do you know how? Okay. So what you do is you take this here, and you take a sewing machine, or you can just sew it yourself and run it down through here and turn it inside out. Then your hand sits down in there like a mitten. See how that works? And you're not touching them then. Yeah. And so then you put the salt on here, and then when she was talking about doing the cold mitten friction on the just with water, you use the mittens for that. Did y'all have mittens for that? You didn't? Just washcloth? Oh, the mittens work real good. And so you can do the cold real fast with the mitten. Works real nice. You can use a washcloth, but the mittens work real good. But if you're doing the salt glow, it works real good for exfoliating. But be careful. Stop before you make them bleed, you know? You want to be cautious. Use horse sense. And some people ain't got a lick of horse sense. But just, you know, the more you do it, the more you see. But what you're doing is you're exfoliating off that skin around them. Their pores are clogged up. Yeah, the pores are constipated. That's exactly right. They're not breathing. They're not getting rid of toxins. And so by doing this, and so we would do this in the shower, or you can do it on a massage table. They tell you that you can't do it having them stand up. Yes, you can do it while they're standing up. But it's a great treatment and they feel good. I mean, their skin's breathing better. You've done it on people. It works great. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Don't run off. This is all how to do it, but okay. Now, this is a cold mitten friction. She was talking about a cold mitten friction. And so explain what she's doing.
So those mittens are cold, ice cold water, and you just rub it up and down vigorously to the limbs, the arms, the legs, whatever you're working with.
And what's that doing?
Closing the blood vessels. Yes.
Stimulating circulation.
Stimulating circulation.
How many of y'all been nurses before? Or still nurses, but how many of y'all nurses? Y'all used to wear the white hats? You never wore the white hats? At first, did you wear the white hats? Yeah, I remember when I started, nurses wore white hats, and they got rid of them. They don't even work. Pardon? No more. Did you wear a white hat? No. I mean, now they don't even wear white. They just wear whatever scrubs, you know, Mickey Mouse or whatever. Yeah. I mean, you can't tell the difference between the nurse and the aide. Yeah. Ooh, ice massage. You know how to do my ice massage? What's that? Are they?
Yeah, they are certain levels have certain colors.
Yes, they are doing that now. Yeah. Okay, tell us about an ice massage. I did some ice massage for you, but it didn't plumb freeze. So the top froze, but you stick your finger in there, it's still water. So tell them about it.
So you put water in a cup, a styrofoam cup, just like that. Yep, about halfway. Stick it in the freezer, and then when it's frozen, you're going to peel off like half of the cup so you can still hold it with one hand. And then whatever area you're using, you mostly use this for muscle tension, soreness, and so, yeah, pain. So then you would rub it on the affected area for, well, there's 3 stages: burning, aching, and numbing, right? Yes. So then you rub it on there till it goes through all those stages, and they won't like that. But you rub it and have a towel and rub off the water. So just keep it not dry, just, you know, rub off the extra so it doesn't go all over the place. And then when it is numb, you stop.
It's a great tool that physical therapy's used for many years. And let's say you've got a sore shoulder, sore knee, a back, whatever, and you can rub and you're doing fairly fast. But don't just take the ice and stick it on there. Wet it first. Yeah, it's sticky. Just don't do good. And so you can either wet the skin or you can wet the end of it, and then Then you start, and you move it fairly fast, and it's going to start being an irritant at first, and then it goes plumb numb, and then you can stop. It's a good tool. It is. I was down in Beeville, Texas, and we were doing this, and we had an all Sunday morning and afternoon, and so we did a lot of hydrotherapy, having all that time, and so people were able to do a lot this themselves. And so there was someone there, and someone did it to them, and they couldn't believe it. The pain was gone. And at the end of the class, end of the day, the pain was still gone. They just were so amazed. Such a simple little treatment. Could y'all do that? Yeah. Pardon? I like using it for muscle soreness or pain. Pain's the biggest one I use. Let's say a person's having a sore shoulder, or sore, the back's hurting, or a sore knee. I'll use it for pain. Yes.
She had asked earlier about the skin, the pores being clogged. Did you happen to share the testimony from Harlan, the man who had clogged skin?
No, you tell it.
It seemed to be appropriate time. We had a gentleman at the Lifestyle Center there that we couldn't get him to sweat. We had him in the sauna. We had him in the jacuzzi. We had him in the immersion tank, and he was red like a lobster. We were checking his temps and all that to make sure what he was just red. And then somebody had the idea, let's put him in a neutral temperature bath. Put him in the neutral temperature after he'd been hot like that, and 10 million pores opened in his skin, and the water turned a foul color. And he says, I feel so good. Because basically his skin, the third kidney of the body, went to the bathroom. It emptied out, right? Yeah.
So hopefully I just whet your appetite again. I left it in the room. I brought some DVDs that are very good. I'll show it to y'all on Sunday. Is everybody going to be here Sunday? Okay, good. So I'll show them to you. How many of y'all know? Do you know Lisa Meisner? Anybody know the Meisners? Craig Meisner? Anybody know Craig Meisner with Mountain Media Ministries? Craig passed away several months ago. Well, Lisa, before she married Nick, was Dr. Agatha's assistant down at UG. And Lisa's just a sweet girl. And she and Nick, they're doing media production, and they did a very, very good, probably the best hydrotherapy. It's very modest, and many times you don't see modesty. It's hard. Some of my pictures are hard, like, it shows that person's leg. Lisa's very modest, very, very modest. And it's a great tool. It's got a book and a DVD. And who do you start with practicing on? Yourself and your family. You ain't going to sue yourself. Or your family's going to, your kids ain't going to sue you. Yeah. Yeah, that's what you do. You start practicing on the family. And then once you get it down, you can practice on another family member, more distant. And maybe a neighbor, or maybe a coworker, or a church member who has a problem. It would have been very difficult to get you up here 2 years ago. Yes? But are you more comfortable? Why? Because you've done it. Yes. And we all should be teachers. We all should be teachers. And I hope it whets your appetite. Any questions on this before we close? All right.
Thank you so much, Walt. We'll separate now until the evening time. I do, though, highly recommend you go over to the Lighthouse if you haven't had a chance to go over there, see some of the literature, ministries, materials that are there. And if you haven't got a chance to register for your campsite, you can do that. It's there as well.